Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Goon Squad show. So real quick, I am recording this as a Sunday night after the LSU game. As you can see, I'm an LSU fan. Even have the LSU eye right there. So I am an LSU fan, and yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about the game since it is fresh on my mind, and there's a lot of things that I can kind of take away from the game here. So let's go ahead and get into that. So the biggest question that we had coming into this year, right, was for LSU and LSU fans was where does the expectation for LSU stand, right? And really, honestly, kind of looking at everything and how we shaped up and based off of the rankings, it looks like we were just going to be just outside of the college football playoffs according to preseason polls and preseason rankings at 13 there. I kind of still I don't want to say we're not, but I kind of still agree with that. You know, I think just we've lost so many players recently that it's kind of hard to get back to that point where we were last year. Having said that, I really did tell a lot of my friends and people that asked me betting wise, where as an LSU fan and just as a unbiased kind of person, where do you see LSU in tonight's game? And I literally told them it could go either way. You know, I said that LSU could win if the defense shows up, and or USC could win if they show up. And of course, USC did win 27-20. Woody Marks did get a rushing touchdown towards the end of the game, although it could have been 23-20 if they would have just kicked the field goal. Either way, it doesn't really matter. A win was won by USC. But let's go ahead and kind of get into the game real quick, and then I'll kind of get into the questions and the expectations that I had, and I'm sure other LSU fans had on the year. So go ahead and dive into the stats here. It was a close game through to 10-10 was the halftime score. LSU and USC came out 7-3. We took the lead by 4, and then in the fourth quarter, USC scored 14 and we scored 3. I think the problem there is that we played a little bit too passive. We played for the win and not really played to score. We were comfortable playing for the win, which is okay. Kind of some hot spots for me that I kind of wanted to stick out was Mason Taylor finally involved in the offense there. Wasn't really involved as much as last year with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas kind of overshadowing them, but was a nice spotlight tonight for him. He did get 7 catches for 62 yards. Kieran Lacey as well, 7 catches, 94 yards, kind of as expected though. He's our wide receiver 1, as well as played pretty well even behind Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors last year. And then also John Emery Jr. There was a lot of questions if he was going to come back to LSU and play. Glad he did. 10 carries, 61 yards, averaged about 6.1 carries per rush. Really, really well in the game today. And overall, just kind of just kind of a nice spotlight for him. Josh Williams, 9 carries, 33 yards, 3.7 yards average. Not really too much there. Caleb Jackson as well, 6 rushes, 18 yards, 3.0 was the average. Aaron Anderson also played very nice today. 5 catches, 64 yards. Xavier Thomas and CJ Daniels. I expected more from them, honestly. I know CJ Daniels was out for a little bit, had an elbow injury, and didn't really come back in. But Xavier Thomas, I really thought he would probably provide more on the offense, He's 5'10", 195. I thought he would be more of a slot receiver for us and kind of push him and move him around the offense a little bit. But regardless, let's take a look at Garrett Nussmeier, 29 for 38. Had 304 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and the interception at the end of the game. Stat-wise, it counts. I'm not going to count it. Let's just go ahead and say, yeah, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But regardless, 28 for 39 or 38 with 304 passing yards. His average was about 8 yards a pass, though, and I'll get into that in just a second. But anyway, let's take a look at USC side of the ball, and there was a lot of questions surrounding them after Caleb Williams is gone and where that team is where that team is kind of. Zachariah Branch played very well that game. But anyway, Miller Moss, 27 for 36, 378, and a touchdown. Woody Marks, the transfer coming into USC, 16 rushes, 68 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. Hudson, 5 catches, 83 yards. Zachariah Branch, who had a good kickoff return, I believe, as well. Yeah, it was kickoff return, 46 yards. He, 4 catches, 56 yards. And then just a couple other guys that kind of showed up today. Kamir Ramsey for USC, nine total tackles, 5 solo tackles there. Eric Gentry, another transfer, I believe, as well. He had 7 total tackles, 5 solo, and 2 tackles for loss. Really kind of just looking at the defense-wise, there was a lot of questions for both teams, and honestly, I don't think, LSU, I don't think they've gotten better. Honestly, even with Blake Barker coming in, I don't think they've gotten better. Harold Perkins, 8 tackles, 1 solo tackle, and half a tackle for loss. But regardless, kind of looking at this team here and looking at, just everything about it. Not really crazy. And like I said, we're going to get into the questions as an LSU fan that we kind of had. So let's go ahead and dive into the first question. The first question was, where's our offense? Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, a bunch of guys gone, but we have the best offensive line in the country. And even with the best offensive line in the country, we still let up a lot of pressures, a lot of, having to scramble out of the pocket, things of that nature. I don't think offensive line wise that we won the line of scrimmage. Honestly, we never got any pushback. We couldn't establish the run. There's just a lot of questions for me about the offensive line. A couple of freshmen in there, but regardless, still was the best offensive line in the SEC. Did not look like it tonight at all. But that was kind of where's the offense, and I think we found where the offense was. And I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible. It wasn't good. It wasn't great. It was fine. And by fine, I mean it wasn't okay either. It wasn't great, good, none of that. It was just fine. It was fine. It wasn't bad. It was just fine. We moved the ball down the field, but we didn't put ourselves in manageable positions to constantly get the first downs. Garrett Nussmeier, again, moments that I thought looked pretty well. There were some moments that I thought looked pretty well for Garrett Nussmeier. We had 21 first downs compared to their 24, but the third down efficiency is really where we shot ourselves in the foot. 5 for 13 on third down efficiency right there. Not really ideal if you're trying to manage yourself in a position to win a game. My thing is, third down conversions is a huge thing. Huge thing. If you can convert on third down and keep the ball moving, then obviously the points are going to come with it. So my thing is like, where does that kind of sit with the offense? Is that something that's going to get better throughout the year, which I hope we do, and I think it will. But at the same time, when we have to play, an Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Alabama, Oklahoma, teams like that coming throughout the year, I don't think we're good enough to beat Ole Miss. I don't think we're good enough to beat Bama this year, just by how we looked off of week 1. Now, I could change my mind later on, but as of right now, it's going to be a tough sledding for us. I still think we win the next 4, obviously. Nicholls, South Carolina, UCLA, South Alabama, that shouldn't be a problem. Arkansas shouldn't be a problem, even though they look pretty dominant in their game. Florida, not really worried about them, or Vanderbilt. But against the other teams that we need to have a win against, Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma, that's going to be a tough kind of win for us there. And then, really, honestly, the big one was, LSU and the defense, right? Where's our defense? You got Blake Barker coming in from Missouri, trying to shore up and give our defense an identity, and he did. And I don't like it personally. He gave us a 3-4 identity. We didn't play nickel, we didn't play dime, we didn't play anything outside of 3-4, and it showed. Honestly, I don't know how you play a 3-4 defense and still leave the whole middle of the field open. I can't tell you how many times I watched them run a slant route, a cross route, just anything throughout the middle of the field that got them open. And I can't tell you how many times they hit us through the middle of the field in that game. I mean, it was pretty much in between the numbers every single time. I don't know what else to say, and the defense allowing, what was it? Defense allowing 447 yards, 378 of it passing. Again, rushing wasn't that bad. 69 yards rushing. I'll take that any day of the week. But regardless, 378 yards passing, a lot of that through the middle of the field there. I just question, why did we not switch it up? Why didn't we run a cover 2, a cover 0, cover 1, something to put someone in the middle of the field to help out? But regardless, we kept sticking with whatever the hell we were running. I'm not even sure what it was, covering the sidelines more than, outside the numbers, more than inside the numbers. Regardless, the defense is I'm not going to say the defense is worse than it was, because it can't be as bad as it was last year, but it's not better. You know what I'm saying? It's still the same. It's still the same, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Honestly, there's really nothing you can – if you have the same guys that have been playing, experience, played through an offseason, learn the new defense, get comfortable with it, and this is what you come out here and do, I don't really think the defense can get that much better. So moving on to like the main topic of this, besides the game here is, and we've answered the offensive defense, is where's the expectation for LSU, right? Honestly, I don't, and this is tough. We might make the playoffs. I don't think we will, honestly, personally, as an LSU fan right now. Even the preseason poll had us at ranked 13, just outside the playoffs. I think we could make it. I think we could make it if we pick up one of those key wins that we need. But it's going to be tough, and I just don't think, unless the offense shows me something different and the defense can make a couple stops and slow down a passing attack like that when you're playing good passers, good quarterbacks, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to make it for sure. I don't know. It's just really hard for me trying to convince myself that there is a chance that we can make it right now just by how we look, because even if we do make it, it's like, what's the point? When we go against a Ohio State, or go against an Oregon, or go against, any team that looks incredible passing, right? What's the point? If we have to play Georgia, like I said, Oregon, Ohio State, teams like that, Ole Miss, for instance, like even Tennessee, if we have to play teams like that, it's one of those things to me where it's like, what's the point if we can't stop them? Truly, like, what is the point? But it's really tough. It's really tough because there was so much expectations coming in for us this year, and Will Campbell, the offensive lineman that's probably one of the best in the nation, if not the best in the nation, has said, 10 wins is great and all, but we want to be more than that. For a guy who says that, for an expectation now that you set out not for yourself, but for the rest of the players on that team, that you want to be more than a 10-win team, this is not how you start that. You're looking at the schedule here. You pick up Nicholls, South Carolina, UCLA, and South Alabama. You're now 4-1. You have to go against Ole Miss. Probably won't pick up that win. Maybe at LSU. It really depends. LSU can be a tough, hostile environment. But like I said, say you drop it, you're 4-2. Arkansas, you pick up a win. You're back to 5-2. A&M, you lose at Kyle Field. 5-3. Bama, again, pick up a win, maybe not. 5-4 at Florida, you pick up a win. 6-4. Vanderbilt, 7-4. Oklahoma, 8-4. That's, worst case, that's where I see us. 8-4. 8-4 is where I see us. Worst case, best case, you pick up again. I don't think you beat both Bama and Ole Miss, so you're looking at, what is that? 4-1, 4-2, 5-2, 6-2, 7-2, 8-2, 9-2, 10-2. You could still be a 10-2 team. And like Will Campbell said, 10 wins is fine, right? 10 wins is great, but they want to be more than 10 wins. They want to be national champs. But I'm telling you right now, out of the teams I saw play this week, not even close. Not even close, honestly. It's just tough. Uh, and my thing is, and I'm sure other LSU fans out there can agree with me. My biggest thing is where's the passion? The LSU Tigers used to be one of those teams that when you go into the game, the defense is going to be, in the trenches, going to be going at you, going to be giving you 60 minutes of hell, and it's just going to be a nonstop battle of just going at each other in the trenches. It's not going to be easy yards to get over the top. It's going to be a tough defensive game. Like, you're going to have to earn your yards. Where do we go from that to where we are now, right? My biggest thing, and I tell LSU fans this all the time, when you sacrifice one thing and get really good at something else, you can't be like Nick Saban figured that out perfectly, right? He figured out how to be a really good offense and a really good defense, and Georgia's doing that right now, right? They're not a great offense. There's some better offenses out there than Georgia, but they figured out how to be a good offense and a good defense, right? LSU is in this kind of area now. The same thing as we were before we were a good offense, right? You used to be a top tier defense and used to struggle on offense. The quarterback wasn't great. We couldn't move the ball, so on and so forth, right? Move on to now, post Ed Orgeron, or post Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, Brian Kelly, that era. Now you got a really good offense and a not great defense, right? Besides 2019, after that year, really good offense, not great defense. So what I'm trying to say is you're making the sacrifice to have a really good offense but not a good defense. And that's the problem with the LSU Tigers nowadays, right? You used to be a feared defensive team that when you went in there, the quarterback knew it wasn't going to be easy. A.J. McCarron, he's even said himself that those kind of games, it was tough, man. It was tough. Those games were not easy when you played Pat P, Honey Badger, those kind of games. Those were not easy. Morris Claiborne, guys like that. That was not an easy game, right? But that's what I'm trying to say, right? I mean, you're looking at LSU now from where it was, and we've been really great at one thing and bad at another. And then you just vice versa. Really great at offense, bad at defense, right? Why can't we find that middle, I mean, why can't we find that middle ground like Georgia does, right? And I think it has to do with coaching, right? Les Miles was defensive-minded, very good defensive coach. Ed Orgeron, I wouldn't even say he's offense or defensive-minded. I would just say he was a really good coach in general, like a motivator. And then Brian Kelly, not a bad offensive coach, really bad defensive coach. And nothing against Brian Kelly. I'm just simply saying that looking at kind of how it went and how it goes, it just that's where it is. That's what it shows on paper and shows after your games. But regardless, I think the game plan is that, and that's my biggest thing from this USC game. You dink and dunk, you dink and dunk, you dink and dunk. That's great and all, right? They're playing a shell coverage. They're not letting anything over the top. That's fine, right? But I saw several times, right? And I wasn't even at the game. And I had someone who was, and he noticed the same thing. When Lacey was outside of the numbers, right, they would have a cornerback come up, press him, bring a safety down to shade the cornerback, shade Lacey, and then that leaves the whole middle third open. It leaves one safety back in the middle third open, and that's when you got to take your deep shots, right? That's when you got to take your one-on-one deep shots. We never did that. And that's frustrating too, because I think one of the reasons that's killing us is because the receiver height-wise is just not there, right? You got Xavier Thomas 5'10", right? You got let's see who else. You got C.J. Daniels 6'2", but he wasn't in the game. He had a elbow injury. He was out for a bit. Aaron Anderson 5'8", right? Karen Lacey's 6'2". He's one of the tallest guys on the field out there. So there's a lot of guys out there for us that could be really good. It's just height-wise, we're not there, Most of our receivers are 5'8". I mean, we have a couple guys that are 6'3", freshmen, though, 6'4", Shelton Sampson, 6'4", Kylan Billiot, he's from Louisiana. That's a tough name. But he's 6'3", also a freshman. I think we should throw some of those guys in there to just have a big body, have a big body, get those one-on-ones. That's where I'm kind of at with that. But again, I don't want to make this episode too much about LSU, but it's just from an LSU fan. It's frustrating because 5 years in a row we have not won week one, and it's one of those things that I'm not saying it's time, but if it doesn't work out this year at Brian Kelly, I think it's time to move on. I don't want to be that guy, but you've had time to set up your recruiting, and you set up your recruiting well, and that's fine and all. But at the end of the day, your record is not reflecting what is on the field. The talent that we're bringing in, the recruits that we're bringing in, the classes that we're bringing in is not reflecting of what's on the field. And again, year 4 could be different, but year 3 is supposed to be the big year, right? Year 1, you kind of set up your program, set your standards, set whatever you want up. Year 2, you go out, recruit, bring some classes in, get ready, build a team. Year 3 is when you really dial in, right? Year 3 is when you really dial in, and this is where you're supposed to show that those 2 years you spent building the program, bringing in, having the mindset, the mentality, the discipline, whatever, in the program and the football program to your standards, right? This is year 3 is what shows it, right? And it's just not showing. It's just not showing because, and some of y'all can agree with me out there, LSU fans or not. That last year team, that 2023 team, that LSU team could have won a national championship. It was on par, if not a little bit better than that 2019 offense, right? Malik Neighbors was putting up stats like Chase. Brian Thomas was putting up stats like Jefferson. Jaden Daniels was putting up stats like Burrow. I mean, that offense was elite. It was elite offense. I don't think we could have been stopped. The problem is our defense was not good at all. Our defense was atrocious. Our defense was bad, just like it is this year. But now you don't have that elite offense, right? I mean, you don't have that offense like it was last year. And we all knew that coming into this year. We all knew that the offense was going to be struggling a little bit, and it wasn't going to be as good as it was last year. Granted, that team was really good last year. But if you're not going to have an elite offense, the defense needed to improve. And the fact that defense didn't improve, Major Burns, for instance, I mean, Major Burns hasn't really improved. No offense to him. Sage Ryan hasn't improved as well. I mean, there's a lot of guys on this defense that has not improved. And it's frustrating because you've had all this time and you got Harold Perkins, right? A really elite kind of defensive player on a really mediocre defense. I mean, I'm looking at this defense here, and while it is kind of young, you still had a lot of guys trying to improve the defense, and the guys that have stuck with the team, Greg Penn, for instance, just a lot of guys on this team that can improve and should have improved have not improved, but like I said, it is a young team, a young defense. You got how many freshmen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 22 freshmen, 22 on the defense, which is a lot. That is a lot on defense. That is a lot of freshmen. And then a lot of the rest of the guys are sophomores as well. There's not a lot of senior leadership on this defense. And honestly, if Garrett Nussmeier decides to stay at LSU and for his senior year, I think that could be one of the things where it's like, you know what, he stays, we get better next year. I just don't think this year is going to be the year. And what I'm trying to say is you got to figure out how we can improve this defense, how we can shape these freshmen and these sophomores into a not an elite defense, but a good defense, a better defense than we've had in past years. How can we shape them into becoming good defenders, But that's kind of just my thoughts on LSU, the LSU game, and everything that I saw. So I'm going to move on to some other week 1 stuff. I mean, a lot of it was against unranked teams, but kind of just highlighting some things that, stood out to me. So, yeah, I'll get into that right here. Real quick, I also wanted to mention I did just see the interview with Brian Kelly after the game. It was about 30 minutes ago, and I kind of just listened to that. I actually love that Brian Kelly feels the same way that I feel. That, we're up in a position 17-13 lead, and we don't play to finish the job, kind of like he was saying. Again, it's not going to really change my mind on how I felt about what I said earlier or later. But again, I do like and respect that he's taking accountability in himself to not only say that we're not doing a good enough job to finish the job, finish the game, and win, but also pointing out that on the sideline as well, they're just sitting over there and feeling as they already have the game in their hands, which I kind of felt too, honestly. I kind of felt like they were just going through the motions, playing just good enough to manage the game, not to win the game, and that's the difference between good teams and bad teams. Some teams try to just manage the game and sneak out with the win. Some teams try to win the game. You know what I'm saying? Even if they have the lead, they're going to still come at you all 4 quarters, all 60 minutes. So I really appreciate what Brian Kelly said, and I appreciate what he said at the end of it, that he's not doing a good enough job coaching, that he needs to, be more disciplined, have the players more disciplined to finish the job, to do their jobs. But again, this really goes to what I'm saying right here. This is what I'm saying. Why is that? You've been at LSU for 3 years. Why is it like that? Why do the players and some of the just the offense and defense and maybe even some of the corners, why does it feel like that, they don't have to play as hard as they did to finish the job? Why is that mindset even in that? Why is it even part of that philosophy, and just why is that just the feeling on the sideline? That should have been taken care of year one. You know what I'm trying to say? Like I said, I respect what he said. I get what he's saying, but that should have been taken care of year one. That ideology, that discipline, whatever, that should be established year one, and that should be carried on through year 2, year 3. The fact that, like he said, that we're sitting here again talking about the same thing that happened the last 2 years in week 1 for LSU, that, again, that's what I'm saying. Why is that not established in your year 1? When you take over a football program, you are responsible for setting the discipline, for setting the standard, for setting whatever, right? Nick Saban is famous for saying, if just every player goes out there and does their job, we're going to take care of the game, right? My thing is, why are you not setting that standard? Why are you not setting that discipline? I don't know if you are or not, but it seems like you're not, because if you're complaining about the players feeling like they've already won the game, then you should have set the standard of, hey, you need to do your job for all 60 minutes. If we're up by 20, up by 30, you need to go out there and continue doing your job, finishing the game. That is the biggest thing I've heard through a lot of coaches, is finishing the game, making sure we get through the game. It doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is if that was set in year 1, that should not be a problem. So, all right, getting into that, what kind of stood out to me, let's go ahead and just kind of scroll through these games here. Georgia looked dominant as always, 34-3 win over Clemson. Cade Klubnik, not really looking that great for Clemson. Should probably go with a different direction there if I'm Dabo Swinney, to be honest. He hasn't shown it last year either. Georgia looking dominant as always. Carson Beck found his legs in the second half, as well as Frazier, the freshman, came in since Etienne was suspended for a couple games due to the DUI. So that looked good. Moving on, Ohio State looked dominant as always. Slow start to the first half, came out dominant in the second half. Oregon looked a little sus. Dylan Gabriel still threw 380, 2 touchdowns, but still looked a little sus against Idaho there. Texas looking dominant. Quinn Ewers, 260, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Alabama, again, dominant as always. Started out the first half really hot, slowed down the second half. Jalen Milroe, 200 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Ole Miss kind of was the highlight of mine, kind of the highlight of my week. Ole Miss, 418, 5 touchdowns, pretty dominant in the first half. If they can kind of keep that throughout the year, they'll be solid. Notre Dame looked incredible on defense. I mean, Connor Wingman, not really a crazy quarterback. Both offenses struggled a lot. It was a very trench kind of battle game. But Notre Dame looked really, really solid on defense. That defense looks pretty, pretty elite, pretty legendary defense right there. Moving on, Penn State beating West Virginia. Aller looked amazing. Penn State looked really, really good. I'm curious to see how they do against Michigan and, Ohio State. Do they? Okay, no, they don't have to play Michigan. So they just play Ohio State and USC. I'm curious to see how they play against those teams later on in the year. Moving on, Michigan looked okay. I mean, they didn't look crazy good. They just looked okay. 30-10 win over Fresno State. Nico looked really, really good for Tennessee. 314, 3 touchdowns in the first half. 69-3 win for them. Oklahoma State getting it done against South Dakota State. 44-20. Bowman looked good. Ollie Gordon, 104, 2 touchdowns. Kansas State, dominant win as well. Miami was probably my team of the week. Cam Ward, 385, 3 touchdowns. Really just, either Florida looked really, really bad or Miami looked really, really good. But if it's Miami looking really, really good, there's going to be some problems for that teams in the ACC and teams in the college football playoffs because of Cam Ward's experience, transferring from, I believe it was Washington State over to Miami, bringing that experience over with him. Washington State. Yeah, honestly, Miami's probably my highlight team of the week this week. 41-17 win in Gainesville. Really impressive win right there. Iowa 40-0 win. Maybe can get some offense going with Caleb McNamara. Finally, being able to spread the ball out with the quarterback. Arizona 61-39 win over New Mexico State. Not too bad. USC winning tonight, and then just a couple other games. Missouri 51-0 win. And they looked okay. Didn't look too crazy. Cam Rising 254, 5 touchdowns in the first half for him before he got subbed out. Utah wins 49-0. And then kind of Oklahoma, Arnold 141, 4 touchdowns, but still Arnold and Oklahoma winning 51-3. So yeah, dominant wins. It's going to be interesting because week 2 has some interesting matchups as well. You're going into week 2 with Texas versus Michigan. I'm curious to see how Michigan's going to do, without Jim there and just coming off of a national championship win. I'm curious to see how Texas plays that. You got Arkansas and Oklahoma. This is kind of, I would say, Oklahoma State first test, So I'm curious to see if Arkansas is as good as some people say they are. But Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon, Bowman, who has a lot of experience. I think he's been, honestly, in college for like 5 years. Let me see real quick. Yeah, he's been in college since 2018. So, but anyway, kind of looking at, that's my other game to kind of watch out for. Looking at the rest of the schedule, Iowa State should be okay. South Carolina, Kentucky, another SEC matchup should be just fine. Nothing crazy there. Kind of going through this, there's not really much else I would kind of point out. Tennessee, NC State, maybe. I guess. I'm not really crazy on that. I think Tennessee should win that one comfortably. They're a 7.5 point favorite. I think they should probably win by like 10, honestly, if you're asking me. But, really nothing too crazy here for me this week. I really do think the only kind of matchups that kind of stand out to me, and honestly, if Oregon plays the way they did, if Oregon plays the way they did against Idaho, Boise State could give Oregon some real problems. Honestly, Boise State could definitely be an interesting opponent to Oregon if Boise State brings the same energy with the running back as they did last week, who did get 6 touchdowns on the ground. But kind of looking through the rest of the schedule, nothing too crazy. I'm really interested to see how Arkansas, Oklahoma State plays out, and Texas and Michigan plays out. But other than that, should be a normal week of college football. Teams kind of dominating the field and everything. But I don't know. Tough week for LSU. I'm curious to see how they bounce back this year. If we could pick up that win against Ole Miss and Alabama, that would kind of be And see that's my problem is you pick up those wins, you make the college football playoffs, and you don't do well. It's kind of a facade, though. It's like Brian Kelly could beat these teams and then keep his job, but then it's the same thing all over again, and it's just the same thing nonstop year after year after year. But regardless, uh, a tough loss for LSU fans, for USC fans. That's a great win for you guys. You guys had a lot of questions coming in this year. Could Moss replace Williams? I think the answer to that is yes. As well as the defense. You guys got a new defensive coordinator as well. He's shored up your defense. You guys looked really solid on defense as well. You stopped the run there for a while before you kind of let up some big runs, but again, that's kind of just week one thing. And then, I think you guys could be a really, really interesting team and a contender probably with Lincoln Riley there, kind of solidifying his presence at his third year there at USC. So we'll see how they do in the Big Ten this year, having to play some tough opponents as well. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday, even though I'm recording on Sunday night. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. See you guys.
I packed a bowl and I fell asleep. I never have the guts to be